My name is Detective Nathaniel Pierce, Homicide, District 7. And if you're hearing this, it means I'm already too far in. I've seen enough bodies to know when something doesn't add up, when the scene looks arranged. That's what this one was. Room 9 at the Crescent Motel, off Highway 17. The kind of place where even the neon gives up halfway through the word vacancy. The call came in at 2:13 a.m. Single male, early 30s, apparent suicide. But the way dispatch said apparent told me it wasn't. When I got there, the air in the room was heavy, not with blood, but with stillness. Like the kind of silence that knows it's hiding something. The man was slumped beside the bed, a gun on the floor, half a bottle of bourbon on the nightstand. Name, Elliot Granger. Traveling salesman. The coroner said he'd been dead maybe 4 hours. The motel clerk said no one had come in or out since check-in. So why were there 2 toothbrushes by the sink? And why was the bathroom mirror cracked clean down the middle, but with no glass on the floor? I did a slow sweep. Camera, gloves, notebook. Routine. Except nothing about this felt routine. The room had that lived-in look that's hard to fake. Wrinkles in the sheets, crumbs on the desk, a map with gas station notes scrawled in pencil. And then there was the mirror. Tall oval, set in a wooden frame that didn't match the rest of the room. It looked old. Older than the motel itself. When I leaned closer, I noticed the split wasn't from impact. The glass had been cut. A thin, deliberate line, running top to bottom. And behind it, something dark. Not reflection. Space. I called for backup, but the radio cracked with static and died halfway through transmission. Typical out here. But still, it didn't sit right. I took out my penlight, aimed it along the crack in the glass. The beam slipped through. There was a gap behind the mirror, maybe 6 inches deep. And in that gap, movement. Not big. Just the faintest shiver, like a curtain breathing. I froze. "Hello?" I said before I could stop myself. No response. But the light hit something metallic, a latch, half hidden under the frame. I hesitated for maybe 3 seconds. Then I did what any detective too tired and too curious would do. I pulled the mirror out. It came loose easier than it should have, like it had been opened before. Behind it was a rectangular hole cut clean into the drywall. About 3 feet high, maybe a foot wide. Just enough for a person to crawl through. The inside was lined with black material, insulation maybe, and the smell that hit me was old dust and copper. I flicked the light inside. The tunnel went back. A narrow passage that seemed to run behind the entire row of motel rooms. And there, at the far end, a faint light flickered. Yellow. Unsteady. Like a candle. I called out again. No answer. So I pulled my gun, crouched, and started in. The air was tight, pressing in from all sides. It felt like the walls were exhaling. The further I crawled, the quieter everything got, even my own breath sounded muffled. I passed behind one room, then another. I could hear faint sounds, a cough, a TV, someone shifting in bed. They had no idea I was there. Just on the other side of their walls. The light ahead grew stronger. And then, finally, the tunnel opened up into a small square chamber. Concrete floor. Bare bulbs swinging overhead. In the center, a wooden chair. Facing another mirror. And beside it, a tripod with a camera still recording. Its red light blinked steady, patient. I stepped closer. The chair had restraints, leather straps, frayed with use. On the seat, a smear of dried blood, and something else, a note. Folded once, clean. It read, "If you're reading this, you were supposed to find it." I turned the camera toward me, squinting into the lens. The timer said it had been recording for 6 hours. The feed display flickered, showing static, and something else. For a split second, a face. Mine. But the timestamp said 2 hours before I arrived. I shouldn't have moved the chair. Shouldn't have touched the camera. But curiosity is a hell of a drug, and it beats standing frozen in the dark. The bulb above flickered once, twice, and then steadied. The air smelled older here, dust, mold, and something metallic. Not blood exactly, but close enough to make your stomach tighten. I stepped around the chair and shone my flashlight into the next corridor. The passage ran deeper than I'd expected. Walls of drywall on one side, the outer concrete of the motel on the other. Exposed wires, insulation spilling out like white hair. And all around, faint scratches, dozens of them, running in no particular pattern. The sound hit me first. Not footsteps. Not breathing. Something more subtle, shifting air, almost like the tunnel itself was exhaling. I stopped, hand on the wall. The passage stretched forward, dark as a cave. A corner up ahead, shadowed. And for a moment I thought I saw movement, slow, deliberate. I whispered, "Hello?" Nothing. I took another step. Then another. And suddenly, the flashlight caught it, the faint outline of another door, half hidden in the wall. Metal hinges rusted. A number scratched on the surface. 214. I paused. Two thoughts collided. Why is there a door inside the wall? And who the hell is number 214? Before I could answer either, the camera's red recording light blinked again, on its own. No batteries. No power cord. Just blinking, waiting. I reached for it. The instant I touched it, a cold draft ran through the passage, carrying a faint whisper. "Don't look!" I jerked back, heart racing. I didn't know if it came from the passage, the chair, or inside my own head. The door wasn't locked. I cracked it open. And the smell hit me. Rot, decay, something sharp and chemical. Inside, a small room. Bare, except for a mattress on the floor, straps nailed into the wood frame, and another mirror on the far wall. It reflected everything, the passage, me, even the tunnel behind. But something was off. The reflection didn't move in perfect sync. It lagged behind, by just a fraction of a second, enough to make my skin crawl. I approached slowly. The mirror had markings scratched into the glass, circles, lines, symbols I didn't recognize. Some of them were fresh, as if someone had just traced them. Some older, faded deep into the glass. On the mattress, a folded piece of paper. I picked it up, hands trembling. It read, "He sees you first. Then you see him. Do not speak. Do not move." A draft swept through the room, though the door hadn't moved. The straps on the bed creaked faintly, as if someone had been testing them recently. And in the mirror, a shadow detached itself from the corner of the room. Not human. Not entirely. Just enough to know that something, or someone, was watching. I backed out slowly, keeping my flashlight on the shadow. The red light on the tripod blinked again. I didn't move. The shadow didn't move. And then I heard it, a faint scrape along the wall. Slow. Methodical. Following me. I made it back to the passage, pulled the mirror back into place. The hole was gone. The passage sealed. The sound stopped. For a moment, I thought I was safe. Then I glanced at the camera still blinking on the chair. And on its tiny screen, a live feed. From inside the room I had just left. And in it my reflection smiling. I didn't sleep that night. Not that it mattered, the motel hummed, creaking and settling, like it had a pulse of its own. I returned the next evening, flashlight in hand, gloves on, revolver loaded. The first thing I noticed, the mirror in room 9 no longer had a crack. It was smooth, clean, as if it had never been cut. I pressed my ear to the wall where the passage should have been. Silence. Complete. I stepped back. Took a deep breath. Then I remembered the camera. The red light. I went to the office and asked the clerk about the previous night. He blinked. Room 9? Been empty all week, he said. Cleaning staff said someone trashed it, but nothing like you describe. I didn't argue. I just nodded and walked to the end of the hallway, hand on my revolver. I had a plan. I started tapping, pushing, probing. Every wall, every seam in the drywall, every panel. And then, a faint hollow thud. I grabbed the panel and pressed. It popped open. The passage was back. Narrow, black, smelling of dust and copper. I entered. This time, I took my time. I crawled slowly, listening to the faintest echoes. And the walls weren't smooth anymore. They had scratches, old and new, marking something like a map. Footsteps, maybe, or handprints pressed into the insulation. Ahead, another door. Numbers scratched into the metal. 217. I opened it. Inside was another small chamber. A bed. Restraints. A mirror. And a note. He watches. He waits. You're not the first. No blood this time. No smell of decay. Just a feeling. A presence. I kept moving down the passage. Room after room, each one the same, a chair, a bed, a mirror, a camera, and a note with warning or taunt. Some notes were old, yellowed. Some fresh. All written in the same jagged, hurried script. The cameras were still recording. Every one of them. And every one of them had me in the frame, even the ones I hadn't entered yet. It was as if the motel itself was watching, cataloging, learning. In room 221, I found something different. A figure. Not alive. Not dead. A mannequin, clothed like a man, face featureless, hands tied to the bed. But in the chest, a small recorder blinked red. I pressed play. And heard my own voice. Day 17. Subject demonstrates awareness of passage. Observation continues. Do not speak. Do not move. I stumbled back. I didn't record this. I didn't write this. The figure, mannequin or not, seemed to twitch under the camera's eye. And in the mirror behind it, I saw something move, something fast, at the edge of the reflection. I didn't wait to see it again. I ran back through the passage. Doors sealed behind me, one by one, like they had never existed. Back in my motel room, I finally lit a cigarette. The neon outside flickered, buzzing. And I realized something. The tunnels weren't just behind the mirrors. They were inside the motel. And maybe inside the people who stayed here. I glanced at the cracked bathroom mirror, the one in my own room. For the first time, I noticed a faint outline. A small gap. A hollow space behind the glass. And I understood. This motel doesn't just hide things. It remembers. And it waits. By the fourth night, I wasn't sure I was alone in the motel. The corridors hummed with something I couldn't see, vibrations, maybe, or a low-frequency resonance that made my teeth ache. I retraced the passage from room 9. This time, I marked the walls with chalk, small X's for each door, tally marks for each chamber I entered. But the next morning, the marks were gone. Clean walls. Smooth. No trace. I started noticing patterns. The doors weren't random. They were arranged like a grid, rows and columns, stretching under the motel. And behind each door a room. A mirror. A camera. A chair. And sometimes, a body. Not always alive. Not always dead. Sometimes just there, like a placeholder. It was in room 225 that I saw it. A figure crouched in the shadows. At first I thought it was another mannequin. But it moved. Slow. Calculated. Watching. I raised my flashlight. It ducked behind the mirror. And that's when I realized the mirrors weren't just mirrors. They were windows. Not into a room. Not into a passage. But into the lives of anyone who stayed here. The reflection in the glass didn't always match reality. Sometimes it was ahead of me. Sometimes it lagged. And sometimes it didn't move at all, staring back with eyes that weren't mine. The cameras on the tripods blinked red. Every room I had entered had recorded me. And the recordings weren't just stored somewhere. They projected. The figures in the mirrors, they weren't watching through glass. They were watching through the city itself. I caught glimpses later. A reflection in a puddle outside. A shadow flitting across a windowpane. Even in my own apartment, for a heartbeat, I thought I saw the chair from room 9 in my living room. By now, the messages were everywhere. Notes. Scratches. Symbols. Some rooms. Do not look. Others. He knows you're here. I stopped counting the rooms. I stopped recording the passage. Every turn, every reflection, every whisper made me question my own memory. And then, the voices began. First faint. Just at the edge of hearing. A mumble, a rustle. Then more distinct. Detective, follow the light, follow the mirror. I could feel them behind me as I crawled. Around corners. Through the black tunnels. Watching. Always watching. I realized then that the motel didn't just remember. It kept score. And the tally was me. By the time I crawled back to room 9, I was shaking. The mirror was clean again. No crack. No hole. But when I looked at my own reflection, it smiled. Not me. Something else. And behind it, countless eyes. Watching. Waiting. I lit a cigarette and pressed my back against the wall. The neon outside buzzed. And I understood. The motel doesn't hide tunnels. It hides witnesses. Every guest. Every passerby. And now me? I wasn't investigating anymore. I was the investigation. By the 5th night, I stopped trying to leave the motel. It wasn't about getting out anymore. It was about understanding what I had become. The hole behind the mirror wasn't a passage. It was a lens. Every room, every camera, every mirror, it wasn't just recording the past. It was observing me. And the city. And anyone who stepped close enough to notice. I crawled through the passages one last time. Every room was empty, yet filled with echoes of people I didn't know, or maybe had forgotten. And all of them were staring at me. In room 9, I saw the first clue, a monitor, small, flickering. The feed displayed dozens of rooms, dozens of mirrors. And each mirror showed me. Or something like me. Smiling, waiting, whispering. I reached the camera in the small chamber. Red light blinking. I press play. Day 28. Subject demonstrates awareness of passage. Observation continues. Do not speak. Do not move. I didn't write it. I hadn't said it. And yet the words were mine. The reflection in the mirror leaned forward. I mimicked it. And then I realized it wasn't me. It had never been me. The walls themselves hummed now, vibrating with sound I couldn't place. Not wind. Not electricity. Something else. It carried whispers, laughter, and counting. And then the final instruction, clear as a bell. You are now the witness. You will never speak. I understood. The motel doesn't just hide rooms. It hides people. It hides their voices. Their memories. And now, it hides me. I sat in the chair. The camera watched. The mirror reflected. I picked up the pen. I wrote this down. Because if you ever find it, it's the only voice that still exists. I pressed the record button. The tape started. And my own voice read what I had just written. The hole behind the mirror. Detective Nathaniel Pierce. Observation complete. All witnesses silent. I didn't move. I didn't speak. Because the motel was watching. And I was part of it now. The last observation. The final reflection. The neon outside flickered once. And then silence. The chair didn't creak. The camera didn't blink. The mirror didn't move. Everything was still. Waiting. And if you've found this, you're next.